Welcome to the third episode of Immunology Wars. The host strikes back. In this video, we pick up where we left off, with Luke and Leia planning their attack on the invading super battle droids, which represents the conclusion of the adaptive immune response. In order to defeat one's enemy, one must know one's enemy. And it is upon this premise that the adaptive immune response is built, being able to identify, remember, and respond appropriately to each individual threat encountered. Acting on the information smuggled back from behind enemy lines by Chewie and R2-D2, and guided by the advice of Masters Yoda and Kenobi, Princess Leia Organa and Luke Skywalker work to identify the weaknesses of the super battle droids and come up with a two-pronged plan of attack. In our immune system, Chewie and R2-D2 represent the macrophages and dendritic cells, presenting small parts of the enemy on their surface via a special protein complex called MHC class II. When a B or a T lymphocyte, represented here by Leia and Luke, recognizes one of these specific fragments, they can become activated and undergo a process known as clonal expansion. This process causes the originally activated cell to produce multiple copies of itself, or clones, all of which are geared up to specifically target the threat that is being encountered. In Star Wars terms, we can think of this as Princess Leia, who represents a CD4T helper cell, briefing Admiral Ackbar, who has also detected a threat, about the unique nature of the Death Star and its specific weaknesses. In the immune system, Ackbar represents a type of B lymphocyte called a plasma cell, which is an activated B lymphocyte producing antibodies. These antibodies can be represented by the Rebel Alliance X-Wings. Armed with the information from Leia and given permission to attack, Ackbar briefs his X-Wing pilots about the unique nature of the threat they face and highlights key features of the enemy, instructing the pilots to attack. Antibodies recognize unique markers on a pathogen or damaged cell, called an epitope, and each plasma cell produces thousands of copies of a single type of antibody that binds to a specific marker. We can think of this as the different colour X-wing formations, which are the specific antibodies, each under the command of a separate allied general, which are the different plasma cells, but all with a specific target or epitope on the Death Star, which ultimately they need to attack in order to neutralize the threat. In our immune system, antibodies do not actually destroy the threat themselves, but rather mark the threat for destruction by other cells, including neutrophils or macrophages. This antibody X-wing attack only represents one half of the adaptive immune response. At the same time, Luke Skywalker, who is a CD8-positive killer T lymphocyte, has carefully selected a group of clone troopers who he knows can recognize the super battle droids and hunt them down for destruction. Some of the super battle droids have left the Death Star and have invaded a village on a local planet. The occupation of the village represents the spread of an infection in our body, which requires Luke and his clone troopers to engage in mortal hand-to-hand combat before these droids can firmly establish a new base. Unfortunately, the super battle droids have hidden in the village huts, which are our individual cells, so Luke and his clone troopers are unable to see them. To help Luke, the local villagers raise an alarm to alert Luke and his troops to the presence of the droids. This is the same as in our immune system, where the cytotoxic T lymphocyte clones are unable to see the pathogens hiding inside the cells and require the cells to display part of the invading pathogen on their surface. The clone troopers are armed with an array of weapons, which result in the destruction of the individual huts harbouring a super battle droid. This is the same as individually infected cells undergoing a process called apoptosis, or programmed cell death, destroying the pathogen hiding inside them. Once all the battle droids have been destroyed, the villagers are able to repair the damage, which represents the resolution of inflammation associated with the immune response. The combined efforts of Ackbar, the X-Wing pilots, Leia, Luke, and his clone troopers halts the production of more droids, allowing the galaxy a brief respite from the Imperial threat. So this first video trilogy has provided a brief overview of the innate and adaptive immune responses. In future videos, we will look at some specific challenges the immune system might encounter, starting with the Rogue One, a cancer story. I hope you will join us then for the next episode of Immunology Wars.